most interesting people I know, and I know a lot of interesting people. Many of you are sitting here in front of me. And Rob has spent 28 years in jail. He was the longest-serving marijuana defendant or incarceratee in this country. Are you going to do this yourself, Rob? And the man you'll see tonight, he's brilliant. He came out and he's been working very, very hard to teach seniors for years about medical marijuana. And his information and what he's going to provide you tonight will speak for itself. So Bob, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me again. How many people have seen me here before? Whoa, that's pretty good. So we'll get through the first part quick. I'm the guy who spent more time in prison for a non-violent first offense marijuana than anybody in America. I'm also the guy who smuggled in all of the Santa Marta gold that became the mother strain for almost every medical strain in the dispensaries today. Thank you. That was the exciting part. The 30 years in prison wasn't too exciting, but we got through it. When I came out, I decided I needed to do something so that other people didn't go through what I went through. And I finished my first book in prison, and when it was published after I came out, I went on a book tour. About 6 months in, I appeared at HempFest in Seattle. They get 250,000 people. It's been going on for 20-some years. There's never been a fight, never been a robbery, never been anybody drunk and vomit on your shoes. It's a pot party. And so everybody has a good time, everybody likes everybody. It's an amazing event. But I was up on the main stage and I had about 6,000 people in front of me. And I'm telling smuggling stories and stories about when I was a bullfighter in Spain and stories about South Street in Philadelphia and my years on the boardwalk as a pitchman. You know, I was making infomercials before Ronnie Popeil. Billy and I are both from the Atlantic City boardwalk. I made the first Skins Unite commercial. Remember that? You cut chicken and ham, you carve turkey and lamb, you cut a cow in half with this knife, lady, and that's no bull. Lady come up this morning, she said, young fella, and I was back in those days. She said, will that knife cut thin? I said, bless you stingy heart, madam. If you had a knife like this in your house, one tomato lasts you all winter long, you stingy devil. She has a boarding house in Atlantic City. In any case, I realized that in 2010, when Prop 19 was on the ballot in California for full legalization, I got very excited, but I knew if it didn't pass, it was going to delay legalization for 2 to 4 extra years. So I worked real hard trying to push the California initiative. And when it failed, and it failed by I think about 3%, I went and I looked at all the exit polls, and they all said the same thing. It was defeated by seniors. And I scratched my head, I said, wait a minute, that's my generation. We invented marijuana as it's known today. It's just true, we did. Before the 1970s, the only marijuana around the country was Mexican ditchweed. You used to smoke it, maybe your eyes would get red, or your throat would get sore, or, you know, you'd look at your best friend and say, well, do I look high? Am I high yet? It didn't do much for too many people, and most people just dropped it and forgot about it. But during the 70s, when we started to smuggle in first the good Jamaican, then the Colombian, and the Colombian was really what popularized marijuana in this country. Thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds. I was accused of bringing in 3 million pounds. it was closer to maybe 30 or 50,000 pounds. But the government likes to blow it up into something really big, and they needed a reason to send me away. I went to prison with a 64-year sentence, and it was not parolable. I got out for accumulated good time after 30 years. That's saving a lot of good time. In any case, I decided to start the Silver Door. We bring a doctor, we bring patients, we go to senior communities like this, except we couldn't get in any. I couldn't even get into Golden Lakes where I live. Everybody said, now our people aren't interested in marijuana. They don't care about marijuana. So we started in the Reformed temples. Reformed Judaism has always espoused the efficacy of medical marijuana, but they never had an espouser. And when I called New York, the headquarters, I said, I'm the espouser guy. Within 30 minutes, I started to get calls from temples all over South Florida. We did one on Hagen Ranch Road, that big synagogue. We had over 200 people, and every last one of them turned their representatives and said, we're old enough to make up our own minds. We need safe legal access. And so after that, we started getting calls from big senior developments like this, and the Silver Door was on its way. Just about that time, I had a pretty good parole officer. He was a pretty nice guy. And he told me, confidentially, Bobby, he says, I hope you can legalize marijuana because I got 2 daughters in college. I'd rather they were smoking marijuana like I did in college, not drinking and driving into telephone poles and bailing out of windows and doing things they ordinarily wouldn't do and then were sorry later. He said, it makes a lot more sense. In fact, he told me, Bobby, he said, I smoke marijuana now, except they test me every month. And with 2 daughters in college, I can't afford to lose my pension. He got very ill, and I came home from a trip to Arizona where I was at Patients Out of Time, which is a fabulous organization that brings in doctors from all over the world to compare their research and share their knowledge. Irv is the director of Patients Out of Time. They were the first ones to really begin to train doctors and teach them. And I came back from there, and it turns out that all the food they made there, this was at a big, beautiful hotel, a Marriott resort, all the food was infused with marijuana. It all had cannabis, and it was great. But I walk in the door, the phone rings, and I hear, my name's Scott Hershey, I'm your new parole officer, cancel all your travels, and you gotta pee in a bottle. I said, wait a minute, all of that's over. It was over 4 years ago when I started on parole. He said, no, he said, I'm gonna show you what we do with a high-profile case. And he stopped me from traveling. I said, okay, you can stop me, but I'm an old infomercial producer. You can't stop my show. And so I, with the help of some generous donors, produced a half-hour show called Should Grandma Smoke Pot? Sort of like a live show. And it was on over 200 times, 20 different stations in Florida, hundreds of times in a dozen other states that had marijuana on the ballot. And it was very effective. Want to just show the short trailer?
Should Grandma smoke pot?
There's sort of a sea change going on in this nation, and it has to do with marijuana.
Cannabis or marijuana worked better than the drugs and narcotics I was getting.
Cannabis has been a medicine now for about 3,000 years. In the United States, it only hasn't been a medicine for the past 70 years.
We have yet to find a serious medical consequence related to marijuana
just
smoking.
one more question. Somewhat to my surprise, we have not found serious health consequences in approximately $20 million of research in the last 5 years.
Public enemy number 1 in the United States is drug abuse.
It's worked for me. It saved my life.
Irv Rosenfeld, who's gotten medical marijuana from the federal government.
I get it shipped to me once every 25 days.
The whole time I was in prison.
In the United States, it's illegal for a person to use it. Why aren't doctors allowed to study it. The incidence of Alzheimer's in individuals who were smoking marijuana in the 1960s are not getting Alzheimer's today at the rate that they should be. They're sort of standing out.
There's certainly some evidence that it's helping some people treat their psychoses. Certainly epilepsy, certainly anxiety.
The pharmaceutical industry is ripping us off, and I think that's a disgusting thing to do to the population.
My son's taken 25,000 pills and he's 5 years old. Well, things have changed since I started using medical cannabis. When he looks in my eyes and I tell him, give me a kiss, he can give me a kiss now. Can you imagine your kid not giving you a kiss?
I would take out half of the drugs in my prescription book if I could write for medical marijuana.
I took a puff for the first time in my life, and from that time on, I have felt as if I had something to help me keep control. It's a whole new world. It gave me hope.
People who use marijuana are not criminals. The real criminals are people who are opposing legislative and social change.
We're more apt in this country to cut our teachers and our educational system than our law enforcement system for something that has been proven to not harm a single soul.
It's a plant. This is a plant. This is America, a free country. We are locking up people for growing a plant.
I think this would be a benefit at lowering heart attack risk, cancer risks.
There's two plants that people like to smoke. The first, of course, is tobacco. It causes cancer, COPD, and emphysema. The other is cannabis. It's the oldest medicine known to man, and today it's used in the treatment of dozens of different conditions. Tobacco's legal. Marijuana's illegal. Does that make sense to you?
We call this the New Silver Tour Show because a couple of years ago when I was here, we really didn't speak much about Alzheimer's, cancer, Crohn's, and lots of other things that plague seniors. The reason being, it just wasn't credible back then. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who hasn't read virtually hundreds of articles or seen documentaries on TV or have seen Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and that made a big difference. Remember, he did that first show on Charlotte's Web about the children with 50 to 150 seizures a day, a little bit of cannabis oil, no more seizures. The fact that he came on television and he said, I have been wrong all of these years. This is medicine. It's very good medicine. It's important medicine. It's safe medicine. And that kicked the door open. And then he did a second, a third, and a fourth special. And as we get toward the end of the show, we've got some important information on cancer, on Alzheimer's, on MD, MS, Tourette's, and of course Dravet's, which these children suffer from. Today, there's actually a dozen medical schools that are teaching cannabis medicine, and another dozen schools that are teaching growing and giving master's courses and even giving courses in marketing cannabis. That's a heck of a lot different than 4 or 5 years ago when people said to me, nah, we don't need a silver door show, our people aren't interested. Today, people are very interested and it's making a big difference in their lives. When you walk into a dispensary in Florida, you're going to find 70 to 80% seniors. How did that happen? Silver Tour. Before the last election, we ran 8,000 one-minute radio spots, cannabis information from the Silver Tour. Things like, did you know states that have medical marijuana have not seen an increase in teen use? Places like Colorado, it's gone down. Alcohol use goes down in legal states, and so does road deaths, accidents. You don't have as many drunks on the road. You know the old joke, I'm going to steal my joke back. I haven't used this in years. The joke about the stoner pulls up to a stop sign and waits for it to turn green. I haven't tried that, I haven't used it in years. We live in a different world, a much better world, a very exciting world. Some people are very impatient with progress. I think, considering I spent 30 years in prison, our progress has been pretty darn good. We've got a really good medical program in this state, and hopefully in another year we'll have recreational. And recreational is the only way that an awful lot of seniors and vets will ever be able to afford this medicine. So they don't have to pay for a doctor, they don't have to pay for a card, but we're fighting hard to pass recreational next year. Today, we've got a tremendous number of great doctors. When I started this, I couldn't find one single doctor in Florida, not even one, who was willing to get up on this stage and talk about the benefits of marijuana. Now, there were some that knew about it, but they said to me, Bobby, we can't go against the FMA, the Florida Medical Association, who you remember was vehemently against it, tried everything to prevent it, but we got it in spite of that. Today, you've got doctors like Michelle Weiner, Barry Gordon, Mike McKenzie. I mean, there are a couple of dozen doctors in this state who actually treat with cannabis, not just write recommendations. And they get together every few months at these seminars and they share their information. So we're educating doctors very quickly where there hadn't been any education available until very recently. Want to put on Dr. Uma?
I, Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, does not contribute to the opioid epidemic. I have not written an opioid prescription in over 8 years. I have seen several thousands of patients, and I make the statement, cannabis is not an entrance drug, it's an exit drug from pharmaceuticals and narcotics. I knew nothing about a system known as the endocannabinoid system. In all my years of education, I had never learned about it, and to this day, only 15% of the medical schools even teach it. I say that system is life. Today, cannabis is in Schedule 1 along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. Unacceptable. 3 facts that I do want everybody to remember. Nobody has overdosed from cannabis.
You're not going to die from it. You might feel like you're going to die.
No, I think we're dying.
Okay, how much did you guys have?
I don't know, we made brownies, and I think we're dead. Time is going by really, 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 really slow.
Well, instead of being charged for a while. Sorry.
Number 2, it was prescribed by doctors in the United States of America from 1850 to 1942. Today, I do not get to do that. I can write a recommendation. Number 3, the U.S. government has a patent number 6630507, which was issued October 7, 2003, and this has been for all cannabinoids, not just one, but all cannabinoids as an antioxidant and neuroprotectant. Patients are improving their quality of life, and I can go to bed, and I know I'm giving them a safe medicine and an option. And I say cannabis is not for everybody, but I do believe it should be a first-line option, not the last resort.
Now, how do you follow a story like that?
Remember 2 things about what you just saw. 1, it should be your first choice, not your last, not the desperate choice. And you're going to find out why in a few minutes. And the other is the idiot who called. That was 2 cops. They had helped themselves to some brownies at a dispensary they raided somewhere out west. And they were very woo-woo. Very woo-woo. When I was out at patients out of time, I met Dr. Donald Abrams, who is head of oncology at UC Berkeley. And I said to him, Doc, what happens if I eat some edibles and I get too much and I'm feeling woo-woo? He said, go eat some more, get some more woo-woo, and go to sleep. He said, you'll wake up just fine. He said, you'll probably have the best night's sleep you've ever had in your whole life. If you guys remember what it was like in college, after you smoked up, you went to sleep, you had great dreams. You know, half the seniors in this country are on Ambien or Lunesta. I mean, we can't sleep. It comes from territory. Have you ever seen the commercial with the little butterfly? They tell you you can walk in your sleep and talk in your sleep. Remember, what was it, Ethel Kennedy, who drove the car into a tree? And she said, I was on Ambien. It doesn't put you to sleep, it puts you in a fugue state. You want to get a good night's sleep? Smoke a joint. Do a drop of cannabis oil, that's what I do. I put a drop of cannabis oil on a little piece of cookie or a candy or a cough drop and stick it in my mouth and let it melt, because it titrates quicker with your saliva than if you swallow it. And brush my teeth and get in bed, turn on a cowboy picture, and within 10 minutes I'm out. I can sometimes get up and turn off the TV. Does it put me down all night? No. I'll be 77 in a couple weeks. What it does is give me about 6 good hours, and then I go right back to sleep for another 2. You know, I got to get up and do what old guys do, and it even eases the symptoms of my BPH and large prostate. That's what happens to old guys, that they have to get up every hour. I think it's time you met a real doctor. Michelle, come on up. As they say on TV, come on up, Doc. What show did they used to say that? Come on up. Come on down? Okay. Well, goes up, going down, I like them both. Here.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to give you a little overview about medical cannabis in Florida. If you want to go to the next one. So I am a pain management physician. My closest office is in Boca, right by West Boca Hospital, and I do pain management, which is how it led me to cannabis, because a lot of my patients were on chronic opioids for their pain, not really getting much better, having multiple injections, and just finding themselves in that same spot over and over without wanting surgery. So when it became legal about 3 years ago, I did my research, and I am now the chair of the Florida Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee. So we make sure that all of the medicine is tested, and that we try to listen to any of the patient's concerns, and we are trying to move the process forward. And so I want to give you a little overview on the plant, the different ways of using it, and we could do a questions at the end, I'm sure. So my research, I actually have patients that are on cannabis using it as a substitute for opioids, and we've seen more than 50% of them wean off their medication. What's interesting is the first medications that go, like you were saying, are the Ambiens, the Lunestas, the Valiums, Klonopin. So it's a real great substitute for a lot of the more addictive medications. And again, as Dr. Uma said, there's no toxicity, there's no chance of overdose with cannabis, so it really is safe, and it shouldn't be a last resort. It should be offered much earlier, like a lot of other natural alternatives, and it should be something that you guys no longer are scared of after you learn a little bit about the cannabis plant. So the stigma behind the plant comes from the THC cannabinoid, but the plant has over 400 components, and 140 of them are cannabinoids, and there's terpenes, flavonoids, there's a lot of different medicine in the plant. So the THC molecule is really what gives that intoxicating effect. It's also great for things like pain and sleep, increasing appetite, but sometimes you need it and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you can use it without feeling the high. So CBD, on the other hand, is another cannabinoid in the plant, and that's great for inflammation, anxiety, but it also takes away the high that you get from THC. So a lot of times medical marijuana is different ratios of the that is done similar to any other medication, using milligrams. Yes, you can smoke a joint and get a similar effect, and it's very easy to do that because You'll feel it quickly, and you don't really need to dose yourself, but we do like to treat it like medicine, therefore it comes in many different forms so that we can personalize it to whatever symptom you have and how sensitive you are to the THC. So the next slide should be about the endocannabinoid system. So we have a system in our body, and it's a very complicated system, but the point is that they still are not even teaching it in medical school. So physicians are not really even learning about the fact that we have a whole system in our body that is activated by the cannabis plant, but it's also activated by our own natural cannabinoids. So the things that are found in that plant we make on demand all the time. It's what gives us that runner's high. It's not truly the endorphins. And it's what helps to maintain all the neurotransmitters in our body. So we have these cannabinoid receptors in the brain, in the spine, abdomen, and then our naturally occurring cannabinoids activate them. Sometimes, especially as we age, we make less, and therefore we're not able to maintain balance or homeostasis, and things come up, like we can't sleep, we have pain, certain symptoms come up that turn into chronic disease. But really, if you balance your endocannabinoid system, you'll actually eliminate a lot of chronic disease and help to reverse some of the conditions. So this is an example of all the different neurotransmitters. When someone talks about, let's say, depression, and they use a medication to affect their serotonin, you can do that with cannabis. When people have seizures or pain due to glutamate, which is an excitotoxic neurotransmitter. So all of these neurotransmitters are controlled by our cannabinoids, and when they are not controlled, we use cannabis to help keep them in balance. So that's the reason why cannabis really works for so many conditions, because it's actually getting to the root cause of why something is not being secreted enough or actually being secreted too often. So I want to differentiate between these two, okay? Because these are the two main cannabinoids in the dispensary. So CBD, again, it doesn't cause that high, it actually takes away the high. It's really great for anxiety. So if someone is trying to not take a benzodiazepine like Valium or Klonopin, this is a great substitute. Or if someone's trying to get off an antidepressant, or if someone has a lot of anxiety, they don't even really need the THC to help with that. It's good for inflammation, and inflammation in general, it's not just osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, but inflammation in our GI tract, in our vessels, in our brain. It's a neuroprotectant that will actually, like he was talking about, we use it now for preventing Alzheimer's disease. And it's great as a antioxidant, so a lot of patients who have cancer who need to help their immune system, as opposed to THC, works mainly on the brain. So more of the pain, sleep, increasing appetite, that's where you get the munchies from, obviously, because it's stimulating that part of the brain. But that can be used, when a cancer patient has lost a lot of weight or is going through chemo and is having a lot of nausea and vomiting, and also for muscle spasms. So people who suffer from back pain, who have muscle spasms, spasticity, migraines, all of these conditions can be treated with cannabis. So I just want to mention this briefly because I'm sure a lot of you have heard about hemp oil and CBD from hemp and are wondering how is that different than what's in a dispensary, and why do I need a physician, and how do I dose myself, and all of that, right? So the thing is that hemp is legal. CBD can be taken from the hemp plant or the marijuana plant. Again, anything that has just CBD in it will not cause that intoxicating effect. But the biggest issue is that it's not FDA approved, and therefore, in Florida at least, we're trying to make sure that everything that's on the shelves is lab tested. And that's really important because sometimes you buy a bottle and it has much less milligrams than it says, and then you're wasting your money. Other times you may be buying something that's not tested, and anything from the soil can have contaminants and pesticides and things like that. So there are great CBD companies, or you can get your medical marijuana card and use CBD from a dispensary where you know that everything coming from the dispensary is lab tested, and you actually know the exact profile, the exact milligrams, and the percentage. So CBD in general, everybody should take. It's the only way to actually keep your endocannabinoid system in balance. And so everybody, no matter what age you are, should be taking that, but it's important to know that where you're buying it from. Sometimes it's worth it to actually see the physician or get a good recommendation about a good product so that you know you're using something healthy. So in Florida, they have certain conditions. In order to get a medical card, you see a physician who is certified to give you your recommendation. But you really should see a physician who knows what they're talking about, otherwise you're going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time with trial and error. So Florida has given these 10 conditions, which, you know, I have my own opinion about, but so the 10 conditions that they say would qualify for a card would be cancer, epilepsy, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, post-traumatic stress, ALS, Crohn's, Parkinson's, and MS. Yet more than 2/3 of the patients in Florida, in any state, are under the diagnosis of chronic pain. And it's most effective, and actually the National Academies of Science came out saying that chronic pain, there's already substantial evidence that cannabis is effective. So we still actually can put patients under the registry with other conditions as long as they're similar. So if someone has ulcerative colitis, it's similar to Crohn's. If someone has anxiety, it's similar to PTSD. If someone has muscle spasms, that's a symptom that people with MS get. So there's many other conditions that we're able to actually qualify patients. Therefore, any chronic condition really can be substantiated. So you would see a physician like myself or someone in your area to get some education, and you pay $75 to the Department of Health once a year for the card. I always see patients through insurance initially. Sometimes they need CBD, a lot of times it's just education. And by law, we have to see the patient every 210 days, which makes no sense because they're so worried about it, yet we don't have to see them for 210 days. It makes sense to me, again, because cannabis is self-titrated, it's very safe, but that's what the Florida law is right now. So this is an example of a dispensary that's truly, if you were to get your medical card, you would go into a dispensary like this, and there would be people there that would be able to help you be more specific as to the products they have. However, your physician probably gave you a good recommendation of what to purchase, or they also deliver it to your house. So this is another dispensary, sorry, but well, you can go back. Just to show you the different ways that we use it. Go back the other way. Yes, so on the left you see a tincture. A tincture, by definition, is a bottle of oil. So that can have CBD in it, it can have THC, or it can have any ratio of the two. And that's something that you would put drops under your tongue. It would work for the entire body, whether it's pain, inflammation, sleep, anxiety, whatever we're treating. And again, it's self-titrated. So you start low, and then we make a little plan to increase it over time until you find the effect. There's also capsules. Capsules take longer to kick in, but also have a longer effect. So if someone wanted to sleep through the entire night, instead of smoking a joint, for example, which may wear off in a few hours, you can take a capsule before bed and it could last 8 hours. Or if you had chronic pain, it would last throughout the day. There's also topical creams we use for pain, inflammation, arthritis, or certain skin conditions, and certain patches. And then there's vape cartridges or pens. So these are things that you would inhale. And there's a lot of issues about vaping. Anything from a medical dispensary is tested. So this article just came out today, 87% of all the pneumonias that people have passed away from are from black market vape cartridges that are not tested, or 13% of them were from those e-liquid, e-cigarette type things. So none of them actually have been through from a dispensary. So it's much safer, obviously, to use a dispensary. And then we also have whole flower that's legal, which is actually buds of marijuana that you can buy and then use. Sometimes they come in even pre-rolled joints with filters. So again, it's very personalized. Someone may need a lot of milligrams, someone may be very sensitive to THC, so it's always starting low, going slow, trying to find that sweet spot. There are some strains that give you energy, some strains that make you sleepy, so it's a lot of personalization. And then last slide, I just want to make a point that seniors are, there's been an increase 250% in 65 years and up. I would say two-thirds of my population is probably 65 years and older, and that's really because they've tried and failed every medication, every injection, they have side effects from pharmaceuticals that make them take another pharmaceutical. So something that can be added to your pharmaceutical is very little drug interaction, so it is very safe. And it's something, again, as we age, we make less of our own naturally occurring, so it's a way to keep us in balance, which is what we all strive for. So thank you. I hope you learned a little bit, and I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
All right, let me tell you a little story. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories. When I came home from prison in 2008, I was very fortunate. The girl I fell in love with at age 15 and had been married to was there, and she had a home for me, and we remarried. We remarried in the movie. If you've ever seen my movie that they made about me, Square Grouper, we remarried in Reno. In any case, she had terrible neuropathy, really bad, the kind that makes tears come to your eyes when you try to walk or use your arm. And it got worse and worse. Eventually, her whole shoulder joint was gone, and she needed a shoulder replacement, which is what killed her. I lost my wife about a year and a half ago. In any case, she was always in terrible pain, and she was taking a half a dozen oxycodone, oxycontin, Percocets every day. And of course, you know what happens. You go to the bathroom once a week if you're lucky, and you go out like a light. I mean, opioids are downers. So you take them, you get kind of groggy, and your day's over. She's one of those people who had no willpower. She drank too much. She took opioids in large amounts. Within about a year and a half, just because I was there and could get her good cannabis oil, good marijuana to smoke, this was even before it was legal, she weaned herself off all of the opioids. If it got real bad, she might do a perk in the morning, but usually not. She stopped drinking, not because she wanted to or had to, but if you got a little good marijuana in the house, there's a good chance you're going to give up drinking, or you're not going to drink very much because you're not going to want to. It's much nicer to do a little pot. You know, a lot of people say, well, I'll try the CBDs, I don't want to get high. Well, why the hell not? At our age, you're entitled to feel good. Getting high means you smile, you talk to your friends, you eat a pizza. But it's nothing crazy. Why would you not want to sit there and have your card game and smoke a little? Or do your vaping? Or do a drop of oil? She would come home from getting her hair done and manicure. She wanted to live a normal life, even though she was becoming handicapped. But she insisted she wanted to live a normal life. She'd come home from Publix, and you could just see the pain on her face, the lines, and sometimes the tears. She could hardly walk. And I'd sit her down in the living room, put a little RSO, that's Rick Simpson oil, hash oil, cannabis oil, what else we call it, Phoenix Tears. I'd put a nice sized drop on a little piece of cookie or matzah or cracker, give it to her. Within 10 minutes, the lines were gone from the face. Instead of the pain, we'd sit there, we'd watch. We love to watch tennis on TV, all the big Grand Slams and cowboy pictures and all the movies. And we could sit there and have a really pleasant evening, which wasn't possible before that. Now I'd like you to meet another patient. Herb Rosenfeld gets his marijuana from the federal government. And in fact, they've been supplying him the whole time I was in prison for marijuana. They're giving her freebies. You want to sit here? Okay.
So right here.
There you go, Herb.
All right, thank you very much. Great to see everybody come out tonight and learn a little bit about medical cannabis. Now, as Bobby just said, I'm very fortunate. I've been a federal patient for more than 38 years. When I was 18 in college here in Miami, I'm from Southern Virginia, I was an advocate against marijuana in high school. I was having all these surgeries and taking all the narcotics and drugs that were prescribed, and I survived. I came to college in Miami, warm climate, and there I tried marijuana. It was 1971. I was 18. I gave it a peer pressure to make friends. And I didn't get high. Nothing happened. It was pure garbage. Now, the 10th time I did it, I was playing even chess, which I hate. And I was sat for 10 minutes, I sat for 30 minutes and played a game of chess and lost. And I stood up. And that was the first time in 5 years I'd sat for more than 10 minutes. So I had morphine, I had Quaalude, Valium, you need the prescription I had. And I thought, gee, I was sitting for the first time in 5 years. And I had taken a pill in 6 hours. Well, how could I sit? Just said the person beside me handed me a joint. And I looked at this piece of garbage, because to me that's all marijuana was garbage. I thought, this is the only thing I've done differently is smoke this garbage. I wondered if there's any medicine about this garbage. Now, my great uncle was head of pediatrics at one point at Johns Hopkins. My great uncle worked with Dr. Spock in the 40s and the 50s in pediatrics, taught at Yale. So I told him what happened. And I experimented on marijuana and found that it worked better than the narcotics and the drugs they were giving me. Now, when somebody has a devastating disorder, all they care about is the best medicine and the caring physician. That's all you can hope for when you've got a devastating disorder. So I just learned that this was the best medicine. It was outlawed. It was illegal. My doctor gave me morphine, but couldn't give me marijuana. And so I decided at age 18 to take on the United States federal government. I started at age 20, taking on the federal government. Now, think about what y'all were doing when you were 20 years old. Now, I didn't think I was going to live much longer, so I had no choice. Okay, so I didn't worry about standing up and talking about marijuana and the benefits it had for me. And it could help others, but I really just cared about myself and get the medicine that I needed. And what I learned as using it is, number one, it was an adjunct medicine for my other medicines I took. Meaning, if you take a drug such as an opiate or Percocet or whatever, marijuana can enhance the effects of that pill and make it work better. So you take less. So I'm not going to say to you that marijuana has been the answer for me. I mean, I can't even stand. I've hurt myself and I can't even stand very long. But marijuana has kept my tumors from growing. I have over 200 tumors in my body. And I'm 66 years old. I've not had a tumor grow since I was 20. Doctors don't know why. Marijuana, the cannabis, it's an anti-tumor agent. It serves as a muscle relaxant, anti-inflammatory, and for me, it's kept the tumors from growing. So the best part about marijuana, and I'm telling all of you all this, is that try it. Go to a qualified physician such as Dr. Weaver and talk to her about it. Try the medicine, whatever ails you, because it works with so many things. But the best part about cannabis is, if it doesn't help you, it doesn't harm you. That's what's important about cannabis. Other drugs can harm you. Some drugs, I mean, you look at the commercials, this drug can kill you, it can do this, it can do that. Well, guess what? If they had a commercial on marijuana, what would it say? Well, you know, you might fall asleep, you might do more than usual. But that would be the side effects. So, again, I'm a patient, okay? I've been using it legally for 38 years. If there was anything negative about cannabis to the human body, I would definitely show it. Now, my health is fantastic. My body, my pain is not the greatest, but my health is fantastic. So, I'm very fortunate to have the right medicine. And now that we've changed laws, I mean, it took me 10 years of taking on the federal government. So from age 20 to age 30, I took on the United States federal government. Now, I've got not many people in this room who've ever met anybody that's ever taken on the federal government and won. I did. And I was using marijuana, I was using morphine. We found it enhanced the effects of morphine, so I could take less. I did all these using those drugs with my bone disorder and still took on the federal government and won. So I've been able to stand up in this country, anywhere in the United States, and talk about it, and not worry about Johnny Law coming through the doors to arrest me. Because I'm a federal patient. But we've changed the law here in Florida. We've worked very hard to change the law. So now we have a law, and instead of taking 10 years to get a recommendation or to get for cannabis, you can now go to a doctor. And they can talk to you and learn what's wrong with you. And within 30, 40 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the first appointment, you can walk out there with a recommendation for cannabis. So think about that. We've got pioneers that have come before you that have made the way for everybody. I mean, I saw an article the other day about Martin Luther King and how he was pioneering the civil rights. Here's what's happening today with civil rights. Well, Martin Luther King helped start that. Well, you know, the first patient in this country was Robert Randall. I was number 2. I was the second patient in the United States. I led the way. I pioneered this entire country. So now take benefit from what I've done. The door is now open for you to go to a doctor, and there are many doctors around here now that give recommendations. Find the right doctor. I think there's an organization that you can go to online that will tell you the doctors that are licensed here in the state that can give you recommendations. But try it. It's not going to harm you. That's the thing about this. It's the best part about cannabis is it's a simple medicine, and like what Dr. Guido told you, and what people really have a hard time understanding is what was the first time that you took cannabis into your body? Do you know? No? No? How old are you? How old are you? 80. Okay. Did you have breast milk when you were a baby? Did you have milk from your mother? Okay, THC was in that milk. So the first time everybody in this country used THC was when they had their mother's milk. It's in the body. We produce it. We just don't produce enough. Now, when it was legal from 1850 to 1937, it was in our foods, it was in our medicines, and we didn't have the autoimmune diseases we have today because the body, as they say, homeostasis, the body was even. But once they took that out of our system, starting in 1937, then we started getting all these autoimmune diseases, MS, Crohn's, all these different diseases where the body attacks itself. We didn't have that when marijuana was legal. Hopefully we can get rid of it again once everybody realizes it works. Everyone needs cannabis. Whether you have a mental, physical problem, everybody can use it. It helps you. Okay, seriously, Alzheimer's. It's not that prevalent. People have been smoking marijuana forever. And then people look at me and they go, my gosh, you look so young. I go, I found the fountain of youth. And I have. Cannabis is the fountain of youth. It really is. So, I have a book, which is, if everyone learn the history of medical cannabis in this country, my book is the entire history. Because I pioneered it, I lived it. So if you really want to learn all the ins and outs of how we got to where we are in Florida today, how this all happened in this country, you read my book. It makes great reading, especially in the bathroom. Thank you all very much.
Let's get along to the important part. Put on What If Cannabis Cured Cancer?
This group of chemicals has significant anti-tumor properties.
So cannabinoids kill cancer cells in many cases.
They have anti-tumoral effects.
There's nothing else that impacts on so many of our illnesses.
We know that it kills cancer cells without hurting the non-transformed cells.
In recent years, the hemp plant has been proven to be anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic, and antibacterial. It can treat depression, traumatic stress syndrome, chronic pain, glaucoma, migraines, multiple sclerosis, Tourette's, nausea, and a host of other ailments without the unwanted side effects of pharmaceutical drugs. In the 1800s, medical journals published more than 100 articles on the therapeutic use of the drug, then known as cannabis indica or Indian hemp. Cannabis was often prescribed by doctors and was part of every medical bag right through the early part of the century. It was a popular treatment for labor pains, asthma, rheumatism, and nervous disorders. It was even given to cranky babies to get them to stop crying. Dozens of major studies have been published in the last few years that indicate that the chemicals in cannabis, in the lab and in animals, have a significant effect on fighting almost all major cancers, including brain, breast, prostate, lung, thyroid, colon, skin, pituitary, melanoma, and leukemia cancers. They do this by promoting the death of cancer cells that have forgotten how to die, as well as a reduction in their crucial blood supply, while leaving healthy cells untouched.
There's nothing else that impacts on so many of our illnesses. You see, when I talk about these age-related illnesses, we're all aging, but we don't all come down with cardiovascular disease. We don't all come down with autoimmune disease. We don't all come down with cognitive dysfunction. We don't all come down with cancer. But the chances are we're going to come down with one of them. All right? And here we have this one drug that's able to help us holistically with our biochemistry to restore balance. You know, cannabinoids kill cancer cells in many cases. People are not aware of that. They think cancer, cannabis, anti-nausea.
Seth Research Laboratories in California have recently demonstrated that in some tumors, cancer cells are killed by marijuana, while the other healthy cells are left untouched. Cells that stop moving and become still white dots are dead cancer cells.
Does it really work for cancer? Well, here's one of your neighbors.
I really believe in this medicine, and I'd just like to share an experience that, or several experiences that Judy and I have had, personal experiences with skin cancer. You go to the dermatologist once every 6 months to get checked out. They tell you you have a basal cell or a squeamish on your head, and they're going to have to do Mohs surgery on you. This happened to me so far 4 times. I've got 2 new experiments that are coming up next week. But in the meantime, each time I've been to the dermatologist, they want to set an appointment for Mohs surgery. I say, no, I got something I'm going to try. I'll come back in 10 days or 2 weeks, and let's see if the cancer's still there. So we've had a biopsy. The cancer cells are there. They've recognized it, sent to the laboratory. And they call me up and they say, well, you have the basal cell, and we have the Mohs surgery coming. So I go home and I put on a dab of what's called Rick Simpson oil. Rick Simpson oil is very simple. It's cannabis that's boiled down until it becomes a substance that's very much tar-like. And I have these little 1 gram capsules of them, and I take a little bit, and I change it 3 times. I leave it on 3 days. 3 times I change it, and in 9 days, well, I go back to the skin doctor, and this has happened now 4 times to 4 different doctors. They look at my scalp and they say, I don't see it. And they feel it with their hand and they say, I don't feel it. And I say to them, well, you know, I've done this treatment. I'd like to be sure that all the cancer cells are gone. So I ask for another biopsy. The biopsies come back. I get a telephone call from the doctor. It's a miracle. I can't understand what happened. So Judy's had 2. I've had 4. I have 2 more to go. And it's been a miracle. And I call my friends, I tell my friends, I beg them sometimes because they're so afraid of marijuana is the devil's instrument. And I say, just dab some of this stuff on. Put a Band-Aid on it so you don't get it on your clothes or your pillow. And you won't need the Mohs surgery. We've had friends that have been really very much injured by the Mohs surgeries. So some have tried it, some haven't. The ones that haven't, several of our friends have had severe consequences to pay. Everybody who's used it has had the same results that we have. We have one friend who didn't have any results, and they went and had the Mohs surgery anyway because another 2 weeks doesn't hurt anybody. And so I'm a strong believer in this. I'm a strong believer in Bobby. We've been friends now for 4 or 5 years, and he's always been straight. When he's always been careful about what he talks about. As he mentioned, when he started here, he couldn't even talk about these deadly diseases that we have, these horrible diseases. I'm particularly interested in the Alzheimer's because we have a lot of friends who are leaving the community now, a lot of friends our age who have to be put away. And I'll just tell one story, it's secondhand, but I'd like to tell this about Alzheimer's because I think, again, that miracle exists for more than just the skin precancers. Fellow that may be here tonight told me about his 95-year-old dad. His father got deeper and deeper and deeper into the Alzheimer's. He wasn't able to know his family. He didn't know where he was. He got violent. He started hitting his family. They had to put him into a facility. The fellow asked his father time after time, please take this capsule and see what happens. The father refused. But one day when he was going home after visiting him for a day, he just opened his mouth, stuck a capsule under his tongue, came back in the morning, and this 95-year-old man, from that day on until he died, had regained himself. It was literally what we'd call a miracle. But this stuff is good. This stuff is really good for you.
Quick story. Mike Durham, H-Man. When I came out of prison, all I knew about taking off skin cancers was you got to have them frozen and cut. And I had 4 or 5 taken off. I'm an old fisherman. I like to be out without a shirt, play tennis, no shirt. Of course, I don't do that anymore. But I developed one basal cell after another, occasionally a squamous cell cancer. And I went to the derm one day, and I had a really bad one on my leg. It was all red and swollen and looked like a nasty old pimple. And she said, set you up for a Mohs. I said, what's a Mohs? So I went and looked it up. Thank God for computers. They take a big piece out, put it under a microscope, make sure they got all the cancerous parts, then they sew you up. That's the first problem. How do you sew up a circle? On my leg, on my calf. 6 weeks, it hadn't even begun to heal. But the cancer was back. You could see it along one side. At that point, I decided I'm going to practice what I preach. And I was on my way to Detroit to speak at the High Times Cannabis Cup. You know, I write for High Times, and I've written for the New York Times. Now I'm running out of times. But I put out the word when I got to Detroit that I needed some RSO. I didn't even know what it was, but needed some RSO. 5 minutes later, a guy comes running over to my booth. He says, hey, Mr. Tuna. And he hands me something under the table. And it was an injector with a gram of RSO. He says, my name's Peanut Butter. He said, all you do is put a little drop on a Band-Aid, put it on the cancer, and 3 days later, do it again. And by the end of the week, the cancer's gone. End of the week, the cancer was gone. And I'm talking about a whole big one right there. Within 3 days, it started to skin over where it wouldn't even scab before. I mean, for your skin, for almost any skin problems, the topicals are really fantastic. They just make you heal so much sooner. In any case, I go back to the derm. Now I've got 4 on my chest that were biopsied and malignant, and 1 on my other leg. And she says, I'll set you up for a Mohs. I said, no Mohs, please. Not for me. I'll be back in a month. If you can find it, you can cut it. Came back in a month. The 1 on my leg, she couldn't find it all. The 4 on my chest, couldn't find 3 out of the 4. There was a little mark for the 4th. They had all been biopsied malignant. Couldn't even find them. And the only one I treated was the 1 on my leg, because I was on probation. And I called Dr. Mellamine. I called Bob Mellamine in Colorado, and I said, Bob, I'm on probation. I can't afford to get a dirty urine. What shall I do? I need to treat those, and I'm not going to let them cut them. He said, just treat 1. You shouldn't get it dirty from that. Well, it worked. And it also made all the others disappear because it works through your immune system. And not just for skin cancers. I made a documentary for WHDT TV from a very good friend of mine who had glioma, brain cancer. He was in hospice. He was gone. I mean, he had days left. You could see his eyes were all sunken in. He got up, walked out of the hospital, refused chemo. He said they were just going to give it to me for a hope, wasn't going to do anything. And started on cannabis oil. And for 3 years, we traveled together. And he wouldn't have lasted 3 more days. I've seen it work for breast cancer, for stomach cancer, prostate cancer. Now we get to the final and most amazing thing of all. I don't think there's a senior in America or any place else who isn't concerned about dementia, Alzheimer's. We live in a state that's got thousands of nursing homes, and there's not one nursing home who has one drug or anything else that can help an Alzheimer's patient. You know, they give you Aricept trying to remove the plaques. Works for some people, not forever. Cannabis works for everybody and keeps on working. Nothing removes plaques as effectively as cannabis, and that frees the communications. Cannabis builds new brain cells. Now, we've known that for a long time. As you get older, you know, you don't make as many as you used to, but you lose more than you ever did before. So things kind of go a little downhill. Cannabis increases the amount of brain cells that your body produces, but it does something more important that nothing else can do. It restarts the growth of the synapse that connect the parts of the brain that communicate. There is no drug in the world that can do that. Now, we live in a state, probably over 1 million Alzheimer's patients in our nursing homes. Want to put this on now? This is a famous nursing home in Illinois. What you're about to see is real and hard to believe.
More than we ever anticipated. The ease of use for caregivers, for staff, is incredibly easy. And better than that, though, is the results that I've seen from my residents almost instantly.
Rosie was the first patient. She was brought in by her son and daughter. She has always been anxious, wondering where she is, who she is, why she's here. Was getting to the point where she didn't recognize family members anymore. The family did not want her treated with any more psychological drugs. They didn't want her falling. They didn't want her going through the side effects. Our second resident is Helen. She was living at home with her husband. He had a caregiver, one that came in every day. It began to get hard for him. She was refusing showers and up all night long. He wasn't getting any sleep, so he needed some help, and that's when we got Helen. As her disease progressed, she began to get aggressive with the staff and other residents, scratching, kicking, things like that. A lot of what we see in Lewy body's dementia, where there's paranoia. She was afraid to be alone. She gave up walking. She gave up talking. She was just babbling. Unfortunately, we didn't know about the medical cannabis at that time, so we were grasping at straws, and of course we tried all of the psychotic medications. She had some side effects from those, but they managed the aggression. Our third resident was Donna. Her son was going to her house daily. She was living alone. He was getting calls from the neighbors saying she was going out at night, and She was going to the other neighbors' houses asking for rides and wanting them to take her to McDonald's. She came to Lincolnshire very mad at first. She declined rapidly. She was throwing furniture. She was breaking lamps. She was beyond consolable. So again, here we go with the heavy-duty drugs to get her under control. Before I went to the seminar, I just thought of it as a recreational drug, and that's what people used it for. After the seminar, when I received the list of all the things that it helped and some of the statistics, and then came back and started doing my own research, it totally changed my attitude towards it. 2 months ago, we started treating Rosie with the medical cannabis, and the transformation has been miraculous, is even what the family would say. Perfect first candidate. She gets dosing twice a day. She gets hers in the oil. A small dab of it is put on a cracker or a cookie. Whatever she's going to take the first spoon of, we'll get it on there and she'll take it like that. She is calm. She jokes now. She goes to activities. She's able to sit through a whole meal. She's gaining weight. She is able to visit with her family and remember her grandchildren now that she hasn't remembered in a while. It's pretty amazing to see her have peace.
There are no interactions with other drugs, no interactions. There are no side effects to this. If we find that maybe one product isn't working effectively, there's always another product that we can try. And we don't have to wait for one to go out of the system for a couple days. The next time it's time for a dose, we'll try a different product.
Helen started the treatment about a month ago. With Helen, we started seeing some results right away, but they weren't long lasting. So that's when we started changing up what we were doing. And then we started to see that she would relax and be cheerful, and now she can at times give you clear communication in full sentences. She was able to visit with family. Staff would report to us that there was no pinching and scratching, and she was easier to get up in the morning. You know, she would be pleasant. She even started to walk again. She's the newest. She's the newest. The progress has been slow. We've had to adjust our dose. You know, we start out very tiny and then we go up, but to give it to her and to watch the transformation in her face is unbelievable. She relaxes, her breathing becomes normal, she is able to talk and make sense, and family's totally on board. They see the peace that it gives her. She feels better. You can tell that she just settles, and it's so rewarding. So rewarding to see that you've actually made a difference.
Within minutes, 20 minutes tops, I can see that they're capable of doing things that they weren't able to do.
We are the only facility in Illinois that is actually starting this process of using the medical cannabis. And what's really exciting for us is that we now have a choice in how we're going to treat the rest of the residents when they start becoming agitated to the point where we can't manage them. We have a choice now. We have this new medical cannabis that we can start if families are on board.
It's very simple to create a personalized patient regimen.
We can start this treatment and they're not going to get those side effects that are going to put them in the chairs and make them worse in physical ways so that we can control their behaviors. Now we're going to be able to start with the cannabis and really see a benefit and the life that they're going to have for so much longer. It's going to be amazing.
That's a marijuana smile you saw on those faces. THC. Good. Remember what Dr. Ruma said? Shouldn't be the last thing you try, it should be the first. Now how about if those people have gone on cannabis maybe 5 or 10 years earlier? When I do my drop of cannabis oil at night, that's also a preventative against cancer, against Alzheimer's, against Crohn's, against the flu, because it builds your immune system. All marijuana use is medical, no matter how much fun you're having with it, because it builds your immune system. It's good for your health. Thank you very much. Any questions you have when you get your food, we go over and talk to Dr. Wiener, talk to the people at the True Leaf table, talk to her, talk to me. I want to thank our sponsors, because when I started this, when we finally got licensing here in Florida, all the dispensary chains came to me and said, "Oh, will you do Silver Tour for us?" I mean, it's not hard to figure out. When you talk to people, you create new patients. And I looked around, I looked at all of them, and True Leaf had two things that no other dispensary had. One, they've got the largest range of products, the highest quality products. They offer lots of discounts, and they are very competitive price-wise. But the reason they have the senior market sewn up, when you walk out of a True Leaf store with one of those little bags with all kinds of good stuff in it, they'll tell you, if this doesn't do what you need it to do, even if you've used it, bring it back and we'll find something that works for you. Now you find someplace else that takes back medicine. I mean, that's like Sears and Roebuck will take back an hammer that's 20 years old. Are there still Sears stores? True Leaf has that kind of patient loyalty because they deserve it. They've earned it. And they've got 37 stores open. There'll be another 12 before the year's over. The people there are nice, and they'll take the time, and they'll explain everything to you. If you're still curious about the products, when you get your food, go over to the table, talk to, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 True Leaf folks here to answer your questions. Thank you very much. The suit from Vizcaya, they will be on all sushi. Thank you all for coming. It's always a joy to come here.
I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart.